Thank you, and good morning or noon, everybody. Thanks for being here. I think we're still setting up the slides, and I think slides are fun, or at least my slides are fun. But in the meantime, I guess I can say a couple of things. Thank you for having me here. The core value at Kitten is integrity. I think it's really relevant with what we're going to say today. Many cool words come from Latin. Sorry, I'm Italian. And integrity comes from Latin. In tangere, not touched. Nothing is taken away. And I think at the end of the presentation, I will come back to this idea of integrity and being whole and honest. So, my value is here on the left, not on the right. She's my teenage daughter, and her value is on the right. It's thanks God it's Friday, the horse that she rides for eventing. In the next slide, thank you, assistant. We see what I did for almost 10 years. In Italy, I'm a doctor of sociology, so I studied sociology for many years, and then I thought that a very intriguing and interesting experience in sociology was to start working in fashion. So I worked for the brand that the devil wears for almost 10 years. I worked for Prada in Milano. And in the next slide, I also show you that I worked for this other brand, and the next is Miu Miu. So the junior, let's say, branched out of Prada, Miu Miu, creature of Mrs. Miuccia. And then today, it's like being shot. And then today, I'd love to tell you a little bit of a story about this. I think, for me at least, I learn very well with stories. Don't we all like stories? So I'd love to tell you a little bit of a Parisian story. But let me start with saying, what do I mean with sparkling world of fashion? Well, I guess we all get like a sense of excitement when we tell people, you know what, I work in fashion. I work for Kitten Ace, I work for Prada. We get that, oh, she works for Kitten Ace type of sigh, that admiration, a little bit of envy, maybe. Now, I don't know about you, but the true story is it's a fantastic, sparkling world, but it also comes with challenges which are unique to this special environment. As far as I am concerned, European fashion comes with an assumption that emotional regulation is a sort of optional, that dysregulation is part of being creative. You know, a designer with a nervous breakdown is not a nervous breakdown, is so creative, or she's so creative. Right? Sounds familiar? It's also a business based in a way on exclusivity, right? Because this sweater is exclusive, it means I am excluding somebody. It's desired or accessible to a few. That also comes with maybe an internal cost. And last but not least, it's a business based on change. One day we're fashionable, the other day we're struggling, in or out, the right shade of taupe, the wrong one. So change, I think that's a massive aspect that comes in the sparkling world of fashion. So, what's next? Maybe based on what I observed in those years in fashion, maybe not, maybe the stress that I experienced myself or in the people around me. Maybe challenges associated with self-esteem, being in or out, the wrong shade of gray, two different grays, what happens? I changed my career completely. So 10 years ago, I moved to London, England. I learned later there's also London, Ontario, London, England. And I did 2 masters, one in clinical psychology, one in positive psychology. And today I'm a registered clinical counselor. I moved to Canada. Am I doing okay with the camera? Because I'm moving a lot and I move my hands a lot. And what I really became passionate about is, as Shona mentioned, practices to increase well-being, and mindfulness and meditation became a big part of what I do in my practice. And my practice is, I guess, you can change the slide, thank you so much. Because part of what I do in my office, in my practice, is quite special. I use an approach based on measurability, measuring parameters. What happens to us when we are stressed in terms of muscles, in terms of our temperature, in terms of our skin conductivity, the microsweat. And also a big part of what I do is based on brain. That's what I'll do to Shauna when she comes. I'll measure her brain activity. So this slide, if you will ever play, this is me standing, I guess you can say that's my name. Doesn't work. But anyways, it's my brain moving like a slide, like a PowerPoint, back and forth. And so these colors explain the brain in terms of brain waves. Let's just leave it like this. Maybe you guys will invite me another time. And these different colors is not a palette, a Prada palette 2017. They are different brain waves. So the green would be theta down here, alpha, beta, high beta. I love to spend a few seconds on the yellow. High beta is worry, rumination, stress. You ever had some of that brain activity? It's when the brain goes places which are not really or always comfortable. Places of worry, rumination, agitation, preoccupation, all of that. So, next slide, Kit. What does this all have to do with fashion, with the Buddha that wears Prada? Let me start with a story. I met again after finishing my experience with Prada and discovering what my next phase of life was going to be. I met as it happens, a man, a Parisian man, a French man. And we're going to call him Marc, which is his real name. Marc owns a gallery in Paris, and he sells pieces from Matisse and Chagall and Picasso. He wears cufflinks all the time and drinks champagne. Like, Paris can be really chic. And so I thought in my head, this is going to be the one, like a forever love story. Also ever got that feeling? And I thought, you know what, I'm going to get myself a freelance job in Paris so that I can go back and forth and visit the guy in the cufflinks. And so I interviewed for a brand that was about to show in Paris for the showroom position. And I got the job. And in the next slide, so this is 2008, LVMH, so the Louis Vuitton group, had just acquired the brand and they were relaunching it. Big moment of change. Phoebe Philo was appointed. Yeah, I love it. Like, this is fashion history. Phoebe Philo had been appointed as a creative director. She was going to present summer 2010 for the Paris Fashion Week. Super sophisticated collection. In a way, not very different from what you guys do here. A very small collection based on creating the idea of a capsule. What a sophisticated, minimalist woman, Parisian or European or contemporary woman would wear. You know, those few pieces that we all should have. So we were all very excited. The showroom, you cannot go much chicer than that. I don't know who of you know Paris, Avenue Foch, 16th arrondissement, Le 16e. It's one of the most expensive, exclusive addresses in the world. We're talking about a super special road. Nobody knows who lives there, but you have these huge mansions, these incredible apartments, the Onassis, the Rothschilds, like a big deal. And you know what? A big deal. And for me, it was quite an interesting experience because I was there freelance, so I got the experience of observing. And maybe Kit, in this slide, it's like, what's happening here? I put the accent because I think This is something that only people that works in the fashion industry can understand. There were meetings, like unending meetings about accent, the accent. In the original name of the brand, there's no accent. And so the meetings were, should we add an accent? But you understand also, right? We're laughing, but it's also a really big deal. Imagine in terms of branding, operations, packaging, everything. Like it's a big deal, and yet let's laugh about it, right? So that reminds me about how stressful that environment was, right? The sparkling world of fashion. Not only that, the selling campaign. Like, let's dream, let's be in this amazing showroom. The showroom was this incredible apartment of this, I don't know who the family was. It was a maison particulière, so a private home. I guess it would have been 2,000, 3,000 square feet. You know, your normal Parisian apartment with a servant's wing and these incredible living rooms with original furniture and mirrors and the original wood floor and the worn out carpets. Very decadent and opulent at the same time, very Parisian in a way. So again, incredible, sparkling, and then the selling campaign, the stress. We need to sell. And again, it was a big deal. We're talking about that first collection, the Phantom, the Trapeze, like these incredible pieces that became iconic. But big decisions were being made about price point. We're going to price this higher than Prada, higher than Gucci. It was like an intentional decision. People were, together with the accent, talking about how are we going to position this bag? Is it going to be 2,000 or 5,000? Like incredible decisions. And the biggest retailers in the world were going to come. Colette, Leclerc, 10 Corso Com of Milano, Bergdorf Goodman, Saks Fifth Avenue, like all of those intimidating buyers, right? These ladies, these American ladies with Woody Allen glasses. So the accent, the sparkling world of fashion. So for me, I was a temporary part of that experience. I was there, remember, for the cuffling guy. And what I could observe is everybody was out of their center. Everybody was nervous. Everybody was losing it. Has it ever happened? There was this sense of stress, this sense of fear, people crying, bursting, outbursts of rage, anger. Why did you do that? Why did you paint the platforms and this and that? So really for me, that was a great teaching experience. And in the next slide, I think that's the rationale of what started to open in my head these conversations about. This is maybe a time to take a moment. And what that means is, in mindfulness, what we're doing is we are, in a way, reminding ourselves about the possibility of being in the eye of the tornado, as opposed as just swiped away like it happened to Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, right? So the practice of mindfulness is a very, very simple practice. By breathing slowly, we're reminding ourselves of who we are, where we are, and that there is an important moment between the stimulus and the response, between an accent and a decision, between a moment of stress and my reaction, between Bergdorf Goodman calling me and the appointment where I meet them. There lies in my head, in my understanding, the idea of sitting in the eye of the tornado, being mindful, and maybe kittenese. That's why we take a moment. This is a photo of our studio. You came to visit us, I heard. That, to me, my friends, my new friends, that to me is the idea that I bring with me of what a mindful leader is, this idea of internal leadership. What is clear to me in my daily life, because I don't know about you, but I have challenges in my life. I am exposed to change. I am exposed to emotional dysregulation, people shouting, or dealing with the teenager and the horse. I have a busy life. I don't know about you. But I think as friends, as family people, as parents, as children of someone else, as citizens, we are all exposed to those challenges. And I think that in that ability to connect with this sense of internal mindful leadership, there is a huge potential to overcome those challenges. In a way, to remember that I showed you that yellow activity that you thought you also have some of, that whirring in the brain, in a way that's how we calm that yellow. And also in a way that's how we touch, that's how we connect with our sense of integrity, the not being touched, intangere, don't touch, back off. So I am here, I am noticing the stress, and because I connect with this sense of internal mindfulness, I can then respond. Does that make sense? Thank you for the nodding heads. So I don't know what time it is. I have no clue. What time would this be? 12:20. 12:20, fantastic. So I'm curious to know if you were interested to get some of that good stuff and maybe have the opportunity of practicing here with me 5, 6, 6.5 minutes of mindfulness, just not to scare you. They're 27 in reality. No, just, and I grab my phone so that I have an idea. So that we practice it. Because the other big point, is it okay if I grab this? It's going to be really complicated for your video. Because the other big point is, you know, surfing. Does anybody surf in here? The guys? Guys, you go to Tofino sometimes? Or ladies? We can talk as much as we want about surfing and how amazing surfing is and the cool gear that we can buy and how cool surfers look. But ultimately, if we don't get on the board, it's not the same fun. And with mindfulness, it's the same. We can talk as long as the cow comes back home. I love my Canadian expressions. But if we don't practice it, we're not really getting the point. And the point is, you see, mindfulness sounds easy. It's in a way simple, but it's not. It takes a little bit of time. It takes a little bit of practice. So why not exploring it together today in this room with our colleagues, you know, your typical meditation session. Would you be up for it? So let's do that. Let's take the time to settle in comfortably in these super comfortable chairs. Please come on in. Join us for a little meditation practice. Whoever is standing, that's okay too. And then making a decision. Am I gonna keep my eyes open? Does it feel comfortable? If they are open, I can maybe focus on a dot. I could even go back to the accent if you like. Or maybe it feels comfortable to close my eyes. And with my eyes closed, maybe I wanna go a little bit further inside. Eyes open is more of an external focus experience that's as good as eyes closed. And once we have done that, once we have closed our eyes, we're gonna just let the brain and the body know, here we are, you know, let's notice this sensation. And we're gonna start from a space, a point, which is, I guess, always good, a body scan. No matter where we are, you might notice the body is always with us. So let us take the time to invite one another and start noticing our feet against the ground, getting a sensation of where are my feet right now. Let me get a sense of grounding. Let me sense the floor underneath my feet. Let me notice if they are maybe cold or warm. Let me notice if there is any tension or lack of. And as I start exploring the sensation of my feet, as I start feeling or looking at my feet, maybe what will happen is I will be carried away. A little bit of that yellow activity, the thinking, or maybe a little bit out there in the tornado. So what we are exploring together is that is normal and natural. And maybe let's invite one another to come back right now for a moment in the center of the tornado. Wow, my feet. Let me notice my toe right now. So breathing in, I am here. Breathing out, I am noticing. Noticing some distraction, some noise in my brain, and reminding myself, maybe there's no need to judge myself for this. Maybe I can really and truly go back to my feet right now. And once we have explored a little bit of that connection, maybe let's invite one another to notice our legs. Wow. Let me notice them for a moment before I'm carried away. And then back. Let me notice where my legs are resting on the chair. The points of contact. Let me notice what position they're in. Are they stretched? Are they folded or crossed? Let me notice. Let me maybe notice that for a moment I can be right there with my legs. What we mean with the center of the tornado. Whenever the brain runs away to Paris or somewhere out in a tornado, well, coming back, my legs right here for this very moment. Maybe noticing my thighs or my knees. Maybe my muscles. Maybe the sensation of my skin against the fabric. Noticing. Exploring, what would that be to sit calmly in the eye of the tornado? Once we have spent a few moments here, why don't we invite one another to notice our abdomen, our belly? What's happening here? Maybe this is where my breathing takes place. Breathing in and breathing out. What's happening in my breath? Let me notice my breath. Is it slow and deep? Or maybe it's faster and more shallow? In order for me to answer those questions, I need to be with the breath for a moment. So let me notice these sensations in my abdomen. Breathing in and breathing out. And whenever the brain runs away, I will maybe try to now remember, wow, this is maybe normal, and I don't need to judge myself. Let me come back to this very one moment. And let us now explore our shoulders. What happens? These big, strong, generous muscles, my upper traps, my shoulders. Chances are that maybe during the day I forget and I carry here backpacks of worries, of preoccupations. Maybe, let me notice. What's happening here? And once I've done that for a few moments, maybe let's invite one another to move on to our jaws. Ah, here they are, my jaws. What's happening here? They are also strong. There are also strong muscles in here. And sometimes unspoken words, words of worry, words of anger, might be stored here. So let me be aware. In those few moments where the brain is noticing before flying away somewhere. So as we come to the completion of this small practice together, this journey, maybe going backwards as when we hike and we go back to home. So going back, starting from our jaws, our shoulders, our tummy, our legs, and our feet. And whenever it's comfortable, it's desirable, or it's possible, maybe gently opening the eyes and resting for a moment in that space, in that modality where we are just noticing around, noticing what's in front of us or on top of us, with that quality of observing for a few seconds. Wow, let me notice these beams and the lights and my colleagues, the coat of the person sitting in front of me. Dwelling for a moment. Because the whole purpose of every sitting practice is not just to be sitting, is to export what we gather, if anything, into real life, into life when we are not sitting, when we are doing and writing and typing and running and fretting, into real life. So thank you. You all survived your 10 minutes. I cheated. Right? Amazing. 10 minutes meditation with colleagues in uncomfortable chairs, with people moving around. This is urban meditation. I don't know about you. At the moment, I cannot go to Bali for a 4 meditation retreat. And so that's what I'm really passionate about. Can I import a mini vacation, a mini moment, a moment where my own Buddha can wear Prada, when Buddha can wear kitanes, when Buddha can wear whatever clothes we're wearing as a parent, as a person, as a citizen, as a gym participant, as a friend, whatever it is that we're doing. I left some time for questions because I love questions, and I encourage you to ask the most stupidest questions. Can you say most stupidest?
Sure.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
Because I think we all have myths in our head. Oh, the last slide is for questions. Go ahead with kitanes. Questions for kitanes. Why? Because I think there are lots of myths about meditation and what it should and should not be. And I cannot, but I, like me, I am maybe the only person in Vancouver that I cannot meditate. No, I tried, but I can't. So maybe you would feel not too shy to ask about that, or maybe more, more philosophical, esoterical question or scientific questions. I'll try to answer. Maybe I will not be able to answer to all of them, but to some. I'm quite prepared. I don't know. I hope. Fantastic question. Yes. Like, what is the whole point? What is the whole deal? What is the whole point? First of all, to have a happier selling campaign. Celine was very crazy. So happier selling campaigns and happier color palettes. No, just kidding. But yes, in a way, you see, what happens when we are in the tornado is we are swept away into the famous stress response. In a way, we're thinking this trapeze bag will be a disaster, and the showroom will collapse. There will be a huge disaster. Newspapers are going to talk about how terrible this was, and I am going to make a fool of my... Does that sound like familiar? I mean, that was for them, but for us, similar, right? Our brain, remember the yellow activity, does that all the time. 2 major things the brain does. Would you like to know 2 million dollar secrets that the brain always does? Right, but for free. The brain is constantly worrying for danger. I am in front of you and you guys are gonna think that I'm stupid and my accent is unbearable and you're gonna kick me out, like that type of thing. And the second is comparison. They're gonna compare me to other presenters that came last week and they're gonna think I'm much lamer. So we always worry for danger and for comparison. That is taken very seriously by the brain, and what it does to our brain is it triggers a stress response. We're almost prepared for what if they really kick me out of the showroom. So my muscle tense, my brain floods my body with stress hormones. You know about this, right? You heard about cortisol, you heard about your hands get colder when you're stressed, get wetter, right? All of that. So that is poison for our body and for our brain and for our well-being. It inhibits everything that we need to be doing. It inhibits cognition, concentration, focus, happiness, right? Does that sound like it's just me? Maybe it's just me.
Probably.
So what happens with those few seconds, initially in meditations, is like I was present with my breath for maybe 3 seconds, 0.7, right? But in those 3 seconds, 0.7, I am teaching my brain something different. I'm teaching to stay in the eye of the tornado. I'm teaching that maybe no, they're not gonna kick me out. It's like 12:40, I'm still here. And maybe someone was better than me, and it doesn't really matter. I am staying with my breath. I'm staying with my legs. I'm staying with my feet, which is a pretty safe place for the brain. There's no comparison and danger there. Do you get a little bit of the point?
Yeah.
So, in a few words, that I've already said many, it's the best well-being intervention I can think of. And do you know why? Because it comes for free. It's there, like for you, your breath. It costs you nothing. Your legs, they're there anyways, right? So that's what it does. It increases well-being. It increases physical and psychological well-being. And by doing that, you're increasing your efficiency. You're being efficacious. Your ability to be in focus. As I'm here and I am present, I can connect with what I need to say with my presentation. I don't need to be swept away into all of those stories. Have I answered to your question?
Yeah, I think thinking that you're saying the brain really is afraid for danger because.
Yes.
And the second is more like abandonment from people or anyone.
Yes. Abandonment is the biggest danger that you can imagine for, and also comparison. Why they're going to abandon me because someone else is better than me. And again, going back into the caves, back in the days, evolutionary psychology, if you're abandoned, you're dead, right? You're a woman on your own, no man to protect you, no tribe, you're dead. So abandonment is a huge fear. I agree with you. Yeah. And we want to not believe that. We want to come back in a place where abandonment is not so real. Thank you. Thank you for being courageous. Any other questions? She had a good one. What I didn't mention is I learned, I was always passionate about psychology because my dad is a famous sports psychologist, and he came here a few years ago to consult the local ice guys, the hockey guys. So he was here to consult for the Canucks, and I came to visit, and I thought, oh my goodness, this place is amazing. Like, remember the French guy? Like, I fall in love, right? So I fell in love with Vancouver, literally, and I thought this would be a great place for my daughter. It felt like very healthy, nature and all the things that we love, like they hit me really strong. And I thought for a teenager it would be a very healthy place, a place of a strong democracy, very multicultural, very. Thank you for asking a personal question. Yeah. I was not even sure where Vancouver was before knowing where Vancouver was. Like, yeah, somewhere in Canada. Yeah. Part of the reason why I mentioned his name is to public shame him. Parisians, French lovers. I should have known better. Thank you for the question. Thank you for putting me at ease. Yeah, it was an interesting story. Yeah, he disappeared one day, and then showed up 2 years later. So it was an interesting story. I'll tell you about that if you invite me another time. Yes, absolutely. So the type of equipment I use is called EEG, electroencephalography, not different from what we get, unfortunately, if we get a concussion and we go to the hospital, except that I use it for not necessarily a traumatic assessment. I also work with concussions and TBIs. But what it means is when Shauna comes, what I maybe will do is I will place a little sensor on top of her head and then move this sensor around and track for brain activity. So the brain is this amazing organ that works through electrochemical messages. And the electrical component of that movement that happens, we can track it down with this equipment. So this jagged line here is the raw signal, is what the sensor through the encoder perceives. That's constantly happen. This is like movement in microvolts, and a microvolt is a millionth of a volt. So it's tiny, 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 tiny electrical current. Through a mathematical transformation, the computer takes all of this and then transforms it. It's called fast Fourier transform. It transforms it. Like, what does this mean in terms of quantity? So it's called quantitative EEG. And transforms it and tells us how many of this, how much of this ingredient is there, how much of this ingredient, like look at the color palette, how much gray, how much white, how much brown is there in this taupe. By the way, I have an obsession with taupe. So it was a big deal at Prada, the right taupe. So again, this, see how they are like different measures, like a different height. So it will tell us, for example, oh, here at the moment there's not enough, not too much theta, but there is a lot of this called SMR, and for sure in this very specific second where the screenshot was taken, there's a lot of the beta, the thinking, and then the brain is constantly shifting. And again, I can talk about this for maybe a week. And then here, through the quantitative component, it also tells us pretty cool things about attention, for example. So through these numbers, you can tell, for example, if a child suffers from ADD or ADHD or an adult. There are numbers when they are too high, it means there's not enough ability to focus and concentrate, so not enough of the beta of the thinking. And this, which in my case, surprise or not, in my case is pretty high, is how worried is my brain. I have a very worried brain. I wouldn't have gone places and done things if my brain wasn't constantly thinking, la la la, what should I do, and the worry and the danger and the comparison. Now I've learned ways how to be in that big tornado of my brain. So yeah, I think I really try to preach what I teach. I really try to tame my horse or train my own internal horse that lives in here. Right? Have I explained a little bit more? But it's a very fascinating field. The field of, it's called neurotherapy, neurofeedback, or EEG, applied therapy. It's a way of measuring the brain. Yeah, sometimes I do that too. So I use mindfulness, either let's breathe and let's notice the breath, or I use, for example, this equipment, just like every time you're relaxing your brain, you're hearing a sound because we can track. Like mindfulness would not really be here if we were to measure it in the brain. It would be right here, alpha, calm, internal focus, right? So I can use that too in terms of the training, if someone wants to get really fancy, or the biofeedback component, so tracking breathing and muscle activity. You see, my passion is helping as much as I can, and for some people it's like, wow, this works, because I thought I was the only person in Vancouver that couldn't meditate, and now maybe looking at the graph, it helps me a little bit more. So yes, sometimes I use also these tools for, yeah. All of the above. Okay. All of the above. My Moment project and my Vancouver Brain Lab are married. And so sometimes with clinical patients, so in my practice, I am, as I said, a clinical counselor. In my practice, I work with people with severe trauma, PTSD, or people that suffer from severe obsessive compulsive disorder, or people with anxiety, panic attacks. Well, mindfulness helps. Because again, when it gets bad, when it's a disorder, it's not very different. It's the tornadoes become really big, and I lost myself into those dangers and comparisons big time. So this is a tool that, if done properly and in a safe environment, is really efficacious. And again, the science is out there. Research is out there. For psychosis, I work with people with psychosis, for example. Don't listen to the voice and stay with the breath. How about that? Right? Pretty extreme. No? And again, pretty simple. Again, can get fancy or simple, but the point is always that eye of the tornado. Mm-hmm. Good questions. Anybody else? What time is it? Before you guys kick me out for real. Because you will have to go back to work, right? Is that it? Maybe the last one? Yes?
One more?
One more?
We have time, so.
There's lots of sociology in fashion, observing bigger groups. And again, this idea of exclusion, inclusion, trends, Beauty is a sociological experience, aesthetics. I always had an interest in, I guess, again, proportions and aesthetics and volumes. So for me, it was also an aesthetical interest that drew me here. So both, like, and also in Italy, fashion is everywhere. Like, it's like, yeah, of course, yes, fashion, yeah. But there's lots about sociology, don't you think? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And changes and shifts in perception, and I remember when I worked at Prada, Mrs. Prada, she would come, not very often, but to the showroom with her staff, and she would have these amazing trend books, and they would sit there and look at trend books and eat strawberries, and she wore these very interesting objects, and that to me was all very sociological, the dynamic of what was happening there. It's true, yeah. Amazing pieces of jewelry, like she would maybe wear a factory worker coat and then ancient emerald earrings, like something like that. Yes, of course. And crocodile pumps. And no tights, never. Okay, so thank you. I think that's a wrap.
So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Really great.
Thank you.